HWA. Talk to me about actually having the school, it becoming a developmental for the WWE.
Wow. Not everything. I wanted to be a wrestler. I never wanted to be a television announcer. I fell into it. I never wanted to edit magazines. I fell into that. In the same way with being a trainer. I'd moved back to Cincinnati. I'd lived here at the time. I left here in 85. My dad had passed away a year before. And so I moved home to help my mom. And I was training bodybuilders and working for Perillo Performance. We worked with pro bodybuilders and pro athletes, in weight training and nutrition and stuff. And excuse me. So Bob Harmon, I mentioned him earlier from Cincinnati, the original beautiful Bobby. He called me one day and he said, "Hey, there's this guy who's got a wrestling school here in town. He's got an idiot as a trainer." I said, "Oh, okay." And he said he said he's going to lose these students because they're starting to catch on that this guy's not all he's cracked up to be. I said, "Why are you telling me this?" "Well, you should go over." I said, I don't need to do that. He said, "They're running a show Saturday night on the west side on the other side of town." He said, "Meet me and go with me and watch the show and let's talk about it." I said, "Okay." I had nothing else to do. So we go to the show, and it's the first independent show, Mike, that I'd ever seen. And I thought, what has happened to my business and why is it happening? Right. But anyway, I'm sitting here, Bob's sitting next to me, and the guy that owns the school and the promotion sitting on the other side of him. And so these two guys are in the ring, and I see this one guy go out and get a chair. And I can just tell him by the way he's holding it, he don't know what the hell to do with it. And he cold cocks the other guy and actually knocked him dizzy enough that he was walking around in circles in the ring, and they had to go out. And I leaned over to Bob. I said, I said, "First of all, the guy don't have a clue how to use the damn chair. How long has he been working?" Bob leans over and talks to the guy that owns the school, and he comes back. He said, "He's been to 4 training sessions." I said, "Oh my God, never mind picking up a chair. He shouldn't even be in the ring."
Right.
Of
course.
So that's when I said, "Okay, I'm going to try this and see how it works." And that's how it began. And then I found out what a con artist the guy that owned the school was. So one of the students that came to me, and he said, a bunch of us, he said, I'm going to buy a ring, and we would like, if you would like to come with us and start, because there's a lot of stories I can tell you about that guy I found out later, but that's neither here nor there. So that's how we started HWA, is an offshoot, and I had no idea we would grow to what it became. Actually, before WWE Developmental, I was signed by WCW.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, actually, Bruce Pritchard, WWF was the first to call me, and Bruce said, "I'm down Louisville at Jimmy and Danny's. I'd like to come up and talk to you about maybe going to work with us." I said, "Okay." So we sat down and talked, and I was all for it. No, I never had any other offers. And he said, "Well, I'll get back to you." So I don't know if I don't think Vince was dragging his feet, because Vince and I worked together in the past anyway. But anyway, nothing happening, right? And I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally I get a call, and it's Gary Juster in Atlanta. And he said, JJ, by the way, and I were tag team partners for a while in the Carolinas. And when he first went on the road full time, Jim Grabmeyer told him to look me up in Charlotte. And so we became friends and did some tag matches together. And he credits me for pulling my coattails some when he broke in. So anyway, he said, "Jim and I were talking, and we talked about expanding the training outside of the factory here." And he said, "Wondered if you'd be in." We heard, he said, "Then I heard that WWF's talking to you." He said, "Have you signed?" I said, "No." He said, "Do me a favor, don't sign. We'll send you a plane ticket. We want you to come down and talk to us." And they basically made me an offer I couldn't refuse. He said, "What would you like to have?" And I told him, and he said, "Okay, let's do it." So I signed with them first. And of course, what I didn't know, their financial, standing and everything. And so they're bleeding money because the war is turning in the direction of WWF at the time, obviously.
Right.
So when they started, bailing out, I was the newest get on the block, so they dropped me. But then it was, I don't know, a week or so later, JR called me and said, hang tight. It looks like we're going to have to pull the sanction from Memphis because they're not holding up their end. And I know you got a good facility and everything, so it's just a matter of he said, but keep it to yourself. And when we pull the deal, I'll send you a contract. So that's how we hooked up. What a
Wes,
crew I had.
yeah, I was gonna say, can you mention some of the names that we'd all know that you've had a hand in training?
Umaga, Rosie, Jamie Noble, who else? Jimmy Yang was there, Kaz Hayashi, Lash LaRue. My God. So yeah, they sent me all the cruiserweights that they got from WCW, right? And plus, the good thing that I had too is some of the guys on the main roster, when they wanted to give them a rest, they would send 2 or 3 down to me. At one time I had Haku and D'Lo and Tommy Dreamer, guys like that. So they were a big help as well. And my cruiserweight crew in HWA at that time, I believe, honestly, Mike, could have gone straight to either Raw or SmackDown and never missed a beat. I mean, Matt Stryker, BJ Whitmer, Kaz Hayashi, Jimmy Yang, Jamie Noble, Shannon Moore, right? On and on. I mean, I had a hell of a cruiserweight crew. I really did. But
Was Alan Funk there?
yeah,
Yeah,
Team Queeby,
Alan,
yeah. I saw
yeah.
him. Dr. Tom and I went down to Brad Armstrong's burial site on his the anniversary of his passing, and Alan and Lash came over, and we all sat around that afternoon and told stories and talked about Brad, and Brad Armstrong is probably the most close to perfect technical professional wrestler I've ever seen in my life, period, bar none.
Yeah.
He was
You know,
special, man.
I say about Brad, next time you watch a Brad Armstrong match, just watch him get in the ring. Watch him go from the floor into the ring. He defies gravity. Just getting in the ring is amazing. Going to the ropes. It's as simple
What
as
a
that.
great
Yeah.
kid. Yeah. I was there. I was in down in the Pensacola, down the Gulf Coast when he broke in, right? So
Right.
well, his dad was when I mentioned going to Atlanta in 66. Brian, dog wasn't even born yet. Or if he was in his mom's arms, because I remember
Right.
when first time I met Bob at the old Atlanta Auditorium, the other 3 were there like stair steps, right? There was Scotty and Steve and Brad. And yeah, Bradley was special. I mean, they were all good. They were all damn. I know I've sat and watched when Scott was refereeing for Vince. I've said somebody watching with me, I said, you know who the best worker is in the ring? Who? I said, the referee. He's better than the other 2 guys. But yeah, but Bob himself always said Brad's special. Brad is,
Yeah.
and he was. I miss him. I swear I miss him. He was such a good kid too. I mean, great. The crazy thing. Well, you know how Road Dogg can talk, right?
Sure.
And Bob was the same kind of interview. His dad had a gifted for gab as well.
Sure.
But Bradley you put a microphone in front of Bradley and he's froze up. He
Right.
could sit in the dress. He had a great dry sense of humor. I mean, we cut up with each other, but he just on the microphone, he just wasn't there for him.
Right.
I do a weekly podcast on Friday mornings. It's posted on the Observer Network. Vic, my co-host Vic, yeah, spit it out, Les Sosa. He's a DJ in New York, by the way, on iHeart. We do the show and post it there. But yeah, I'm still doing seminars. I want to tell you a seminar I'm doing in East Tennessee in April. Let me get the date here right. I might have to break out the let's see, April 11, 12, and 13th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's called Wrestling with the Kingdom. It's going to be about religion, a little prayer session in the morning. Nobody has to be you don't have to be a Christian to show up. We train. We did this last year up there as well. George South is going to be one of the trainers with me. Matt Sigmund, Brad Thomas, and Chance Prophet. But anyway, or 200. I'm sorry, for the 3 days. Lunch is served every day, and you can, if you're interested, sigmundwrestling@gmail.com for all the information and to sign up. But what you and I are talking about is the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa, the induction weekend, which is, again, I've got to go. Bad memory for an old guy, huh? It's July the 19th. The actual induction weekend is the 17th, 18th, and 19th, Saturday the 9th, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But the training session will be Saturday the 19th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. with lunch served in the middle, obviously. And along with myself, the other trainers are Ron Hutchison, who's being inducted to the hall this year, and Joe Malenko, who's already in, James Beard, who's already in, and D'Lo Brown, who was my first HWA heavyweight champion back in the day. So I've got history with all these guys, right? Info at wrestlingconnex.com. It's a $100 a quarter for the session. But I suggest for $75 more, you get the whole weekend.
If people want to reach out to you personally, do you want to give any of that social media?
Sure. Les Thatcher 28@gmail.com.
The first thing we talked about when you started telling stories was you got in the car, and that's where your education started.
Oh, yes.
That's just going to these things and getting a chance to ask Les Thatcher a question. That's worth $200 right there. It really is.
I'll send you a bill.
It really is.